G'day guys, can't go fishing, we're still in lockdown, and I want to show you my favourite bread recipe. This is actually a baguette recipe, however it is absolutely stunning to make bread rolls or even bread. The secret is you've got to make a POOLISH, and it's P-O-O-L, so it's a POOLISH, which is when you ferment flour with yeast and water and you leave it for probably 4 to 6 hours and it gets all fermenty. So I'll show you how to do it. First of all, you need to put in 89 grams of just white flour. So this is just high grade flour. You can use white flour, strong flour, it doesn't really matter. So we want 89 grams of that, and that's around about, that's 89 there precisely. No, it's not, it's 84. There we go, 89. Okay, so we've got our flour there, and then we want to put in 89 grams again of just warm water. Okay, so we just chuck that in like yay, and then we want to put in 1 gram of yeast. Now I'm using Edmonds yeast, dried yeast, absolutely fine, just 1 gram of that. Okay, so put in 1 gram, we're measuring. There we go, that's 1 gram. I've got a scale under here, you can't actually see it, but okay, so then what we do is just get a little mixer and just mix it up. Now this recipe is very wet. It's a very wet recipe, so we just want to mix that all together, and it goes a bit like Play-Doh, but that's absolutely fine. So just mix. That's good. Right, so what we're going to do now is get that off as much as you can. Okay, you're going to end up something like that. Now if you leave that, now you cover it up with Glad wrap, then leave it for 4 to 6 hours, it will ferment. Okay, so I've got rid of that one, and here's one that I've already done, a little something I prepared earlier. I'll put it here so you can see it very clearly. That's what it goes like. Okay, so that is a POOLISH, and it actually smells, it smells fermented. It's got a slight little beer, you know, like a lagery sort of smell to it. It smells a bit like beer, but that's yeah, well and truly fermented. That's been fermenting for 6 hours, so starts off like that, ends up like that. Okay, so that is the secret to this dough. Now this is actually a baguette recipe for making French baguette, and when you cook baguette, of course, you use steam in the oven to make it crispy on the outside, and this fermenting process makes the dough inside very chewy. So baguette has no salt, it's got no yes, it does have salt, sorry, it does have salt, that goes in the mix, but it's got no sugar is what I meant to say. It's got no sugar, so it's just got salt, yeast, flour and water, 4 ingredients. But the POOLISH has no salt. It's just as we've described it. So once you've got that one fermented, it has to go in a warm area obviously, then the next step is to mix it in with the dough. So we'll come back to that right now. Okay, we're back. So to make the main ingredients, you need to have 268 grams of flour. Okay, this is what we're going to add our POOLISH to. Now I didn't really talk this recipe up. It's very simple to make. This is the reason I like making it, and also it's really delicious, so your friends will be amazed. So 268 grams, that's exactly right, of flour, and then we want 163 grams of warm water. So just got to work that out. Go back to 0 there. And let's get some warm water. Right, so we've got our 268 of flour, and what we want now is 163 grams of warm water. Right, so we're just going to mix that in there. There it is, and then we're going to put in 1 gram of yeast again. Remember, we've already got our yeast in our POOLISH, so we'll go, there we go, that's 1 gram. and then we just want 1 teaspoon of salt. Now if you like a bit more salt in your food, I don't like a lot of salt, so I'm just going to put one for good measure, 1 for the big snapper next week when we're out of lockdown. Right, that's it. That is it. Now what we do is we get our little trusty spatula, and we are going to mix in our POOLISH. Okay, that goes in with this. So we're just going to mix it up like this and that, and it just smells like, it does smell like beer, and it's very creamy, as you can see, and it's quite strong smelling, which is good. Now this mixture, the whole idea with this dough, and this is why I love making it, because it's so easy, you don't want to overwork it. So we can get rid of our scale now, and what you want to do is just work this in, but you don't want to knead this dough or overwork it at all. Okay, so you're just going to keep working it in. It might be easier to add the foolish or Polish at the end rather than doing what I'm doing. It's made it a bit harder to mix in, but this is what you do. Okay, now it will end up being very wet, and then once this is mixed together, what you have to do is every 30 minutes you have to come and just fold it on top of itself. So it's going to rest for 2 hours, and then every 30 minutes you've got to do the folding. Okay, so we'll keep going with this so we get the consistency right. Now this bread with a bit of smoked kingfish, smoked snapper, smoked kahawai, you know, would just, I'll tell you what, I'm going to actually make bread rolls. I've been making baguettes with it, but the bread rolls would be probably better, I reckon. Okay, so you don't need to be too fussy because it will join together, but just make sure it's all broken down. You don't want to knead it. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so that's called shaggy dough. Not to be confused with anything else to do with shaggy. This is just shaggy dough. That's what it looks like. Okay, so what you're going to do now is cover that with some Glad wrap and let that rest for 2 hours. But every 30 minutes you're going to come in, and basically what you're going to do every 30 minutes is just get it and fold it on top of itself, and then flip it upside down. Simple, eh? Right, let's put some film on that. I'm just going to put that's not big enough, so I'll get some new, just cover that in Glad wrap and put it in a warm area, and then every 30 minutes do your twisting. Okay, we're back. So the dough's been resting for 30 minutes, and that's what it goes like. And what you want to do now is just wet your hands, just not too much, just make sure your hands slightly wet so it doesn't stick. Now I forgot to mention before, this bowl, you should oil it first. Okay, just a spray of oil just to stop it sticking. And what we're going to do now is just, and you'll see it's a very wet mix, right? This is why you need to water your hands a bit. So you're just sort of folding like that, and you're going to fold it in on itself, right? So in on like that, in like that again, like that, and it smells, you know, very, very yeasty, very fermented. Okay, so you don't want to work the dough, you just want to fold it in on itself like that. So you just do that a few times, and then you end up just tipping it upside down like that. Okay, now it needs to go back again, and it needs to rest there for another 30 minutes, and then you're going to come back and do the same thing again. So over the 2 hour period you're going to do this 3 times. Yes, 3 times. So do it every 30 minutes, and obviously let it sit for the last half hour, and then from there you're actually going to put it into little buns. I'm going to make buns. You can make baguette, you can make bread, you can make whatever you want, but you put it into your shape and then let it rise again, and then we're going to bake it. Now folds, and this is what we've ended up with, and as you can see it still is a very wet mix, It's meant to be like that. And what we're going to do now is we are going to get it out onto a board with a bit of flour on it. and cut it into the shapes that we actually want. So just put a bit of flour so it doesn't stick. You don't need too much. That's a little bit too much, but that'll be fine. So we'll just tip it out of there onto here. And of course, very doughy. I'm going to get the thing there just to help. Now it's meant to be as wet as this, and it still smells like a bad lager. Okay. Right, so put a little bit of flour on top. So what you're really wanting to do here is just level it out a bit without working the dough and get it into the shapes that you want. Now if you're doing a baguette, obviously you'd just do two, you'd cut that into two and roll it out nice and thin, but we're going to do these little rolls. So it's nice and even. Good. Right, we get a knife, and because it's such a wet dough for doing little bread rolls, I'm going to put it in a baker's dish like this. Lots of oil just to, so they don't stick. And then basically we've got 6, 12, so just cut that down around about there, and then into 6 pieces each. You can see it's very wet. Alright, so 1, 2, I might actually do 4. Okay, so you're just going to pop that in there, and then these are going to rise again. There, and do the same with this one here. So you can end up with 8 rolls. So that's what they've ended up like. You probably couldn't see that because I was off film. So I've just cut that into that, and now we've got pieces like that. So now we're going to let that rise again. So this time when you put your foil, not foil, so your Glad wrap over the area, you're just going to spray a little bit of oil on it so it doesn't stick when these little buns start rising up. So let's recycle that. I'm just going to go onto here, spray a bit of oil. Beautiful. Whack that like that, and do the same to the other one. That is going to rise for 30 to 40 minutes, probably an hour, and then we're going to slash the top, dust a little bit of flour on, and then bake them in a really hot oven with some ice in the water, ice in the oven at least, in the bottom. See you then. Okay, so these have risen now for 40 minutes. I should let them go a bit longer, and to be fair, what I should have done is actually just made 6 buns. So I'd use that dough and put it into there, but it doesn't matter. They'll still be tasty. I normally make baguettes. This is the first time I've done it this way, but they'll still be delicious, so it's good. So 40 minutes, probably could give them a bit longer, just running a bit short on time. So what we're going to do now is just give them a bit of a slash on the top there. Slash them a bit. I think I'm destroying the rise, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I am a bit. Okay, well, it balls that up. I'm right, never mind. So we're just going to put a little bit of dusting on there. Dusting of flour. Okay, so don't do what I've done. I think you might need to slash them first. Look, any bread aficionados, or whatever the word is, that are watching, let me know, because I've just stuffed that up. But while I was doing this, I had a call from someone who's a bit of a bread maker, and they were sending me recipes. So I think there's a lot of bread recipes out there. If you've got one that you really want to share, leave it in the comments below. The best bread recipe, and we'll do a bit of a competition while we've got the COVID-19 going on. Well, some of you might not be in lockdown, we still are. So these were going to be good until I actually sliced them and stuffed up the rising but I'm sure this will be tasty. So what I've got now is I've got a big thing of ice. I've got the oven set to 240 degrees and it's ready to go. And I'm going to now pop these in the oven with the ice, and then I'll come back in 40 minutes and I'll show you the result. They'll be flatbreads, but it doesn't matter. Well, here they are. They've come out absolutely beautiful. They're all spongy inside like they're meant to be, so chewy, and they're really super crunchy. Really nice. Now, probably only needed to do 6 buns, so they're a bit small, but they're very crunchy on the outside, lovely and chewy in the middle, and just exactly how they should be. So probably do them for 20 minutes, then check them. Little tip, get the water evaporating first before you put them in. It took too long. And but they're beautiful. So that with a bit of smoked kingfish, smoked snapper, 10 out of 10. Very simple recipe to do. So put your recipes in the comments below if you've got a better one, or if you've got a nice bread recipe that you use for your family. Chuck it in the comments with a link to it on YouTube so we can have a look. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week when the lockdown's gone.